right, good afternoon to everyone. Let us start with our session. So thank you for joining us today for Smart Solutions in Post-COVID-19 series. We have a group of very experienced and experts in this field that's going to speak with us, and we're very interested to find out on the Q&A. Some members have let us know that they are very interested for the Q&A portion for today's webinar, so we will look forward to that as well. For today's session, Mr. Satish will be our moderator. So a little bit about Mr. Satish before we start. He's a strategy and management consultant with over 13 years of experience dealing with revenue impact, business consulting, sales and distribution transformation. So these are his forte. For the last 6 years, he's been with Markets and Markets, researching on IoT ecosystem, focusing on adoption and execution of telecom and networking, smart cities, smart mobility. And he's also in the industry side with Sinatron Technologies, managing the market intelligence, pre-sales support, and various strategy initiatives. So over to you, Mr. Satish.
Yeah, thank you, Gauri. Thanks a lot. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar for Smart Solutions post COVID-19. So, COVID-19 has affected the entire world and causing the widespread disruptions in economies and healthcare services, so on and so forth. So we all know that all citizens are expecting their governments to be providing their credible information, leadership, and guidance towards the safety and healthcare to avoid the economic disruptions. But the pandemic has forced all governments to take the actions usually reserved for something like war or natural disaster, depression, something like all these kind of things, in order to minimize the loss of human lives and they minimize the economic disruptions. And the pandemic has affected the tech business as well. So the technology adoption across the smart city nation has goes down, that everybody's everybody's complaining about it. But there are a silver lining to this aspect as well, because we all think that this pandemic drive the growth of technology adoption in smart city market as well, because we have seen that cities have seen the decline in the use of infrastructure because of pandemic, and as the people are fleeing from cities to go to the suburbs, as the work from home culture is takes off. But then one way to look at it opportunity, because now cities like the smaller cities or the suburbs are also need to improve their infrastructure through the smart and embedded technologies to attract the other customers as well. However, there are I would say a lot of challenges are associated with these kind of post-pandemic situation here. High cost of implementation, then the compatible infrastructure, so on and so forth. So to discuss these aspects of a smart city business, so we have invited 4 eminent personalities from our industry. To begin with, we have got Mr. Raghu Babu. Raghu heads the geoinformation system BU at Surabana Jurong. Surabana Jurong Private Consultants Private Limited. He has more than 23 years of experience in managing the GIS technology, designing roadmaps, GTM strategies, business process management, and transitioning the large vertical projects. So planning, designing, development of multi-location projects across the continent is Raghu's forte. Prior to that, Raghu was managing and delivering large IT projects at a tier 1 IT companies. So Raghu.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the time. Yeah. You introducing others, or you want me to go ahead? Satish?
No, fine. I think that's sufficient. So our second speaker today is Miss Anju Jaiswal. Anju is a executive member of SBL Corporation, a 100-year-old Japanese company. Anju is responsible in playing a part in developing and implementing the global strategy for AC Group and developing AC Group's management policies. As a MD of Strategy Planning and Development Office at Southeast Asia for AC, she's responsible for integrating companies' activities such as business promotion, strategic planning, administration of the group subsidiaries. Prior to that, Anju has held both global and regional head position in the process solutioning and communication business verticals of a German multinational. Anju?
Thanks so much, Satish. Thank you to everyone who's joining us, and I'm looking forward to our conversations for post-COVID-19 cities and interacting with the audience.
Thank you, Anju. So our third speaker is Mr. Pradeep Kodi. Pradeep is a director and founder of iBase Systems. Pradeep is an accomplished management professional with excellent experience in strategic marketing, business development, operations, and training. He has been generating revenues through his business strategies and marketing campaigns. Currently, he is leading iBase system that offers solutions for smart city projects across various continents. Pradeep?
Hey, thanks, Satish. Thanks everyone for joining with us. Okay, we can have a very detailed discussion about how the post-COVID smart city solutions will help. Yeah, thank you, everyone.
And we have Mr. Abhijit Chanbag, with our fourth speaker. Abhijit is an interesting personality, I would say. He is currently president and CEO of Grammatics, one of the leaders of video AI solutions, and mostly being used for smart cities and smart nation kind of projects. Previous to CTO of Scientera, a multi-GPBS mixed signal semiconductor company, which he co-founded in 2002. Previous to Scientera, Chanbag held key technical and management roles at Qualcomm. He holds BS from IIT Bombay and PhD from University of Southern California, where he continues to be closely involved with the advisory board members.
Oh, thank you very much, Satish. Good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure to participate in this panel. And thank you very much for your time. I know it's the middle of the week, so glad you are able to join.
Yes. So moving into the discussion, I would like all of our speakers to present their presentation, and post that we will ask question answer sessions. We will take their questions with them. Okay. I think we should start with Raghu first.
Yep. Thanks, Satish. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Can I share, Satish, my screen?
Please.
Okay. Sure. Okay. Yeah. Welcome all of you for this session on post-COVID smart city urban systems, how things change. And then COVID has become a time in space where everything start changing, and which we never expected in 2019 end. I think on Feb 22nd, I was in country Gabon, and we are about to sign a contract. Everything has to be written in French. So then we didn't have the French speaker on board on that day. So we thought we'll come back to Singapore, prepare the French document, and then send it for signing, which we agreed. Then we came back. On 28th, I was in Singapore. 27th, I think. 27th Feb 2020. We thought we'll go back to Gabon in 2 weeks from that time. That 2 weeks never came. And then onwards, this is almost now coming to a few months short of 2 years. So which has taken a lot of things for change and a lot of things for completely becoming irrelevant, and a lot of things becoming exceedingly relevant in life and how things are made. So in urban domain, what we do as a Sabna Jurong, as a company, we do a complete planning of cities and infrastructure development projects, smart solutions, smart cities, and maintenance of cities. In specific, I work on supporting the urban planning and designing systems where smart cities play a critical role in our rollouts. So I have been helping URA, ALTA, and other government agencies for last 20 years in Singapore. So in my view, what I see is a bit very post-pandemic smart cities definitely have changed a lot of things. I have been put forward 4 items. There may be a lot of items, but which I have experienced in firsthand of these 4. Real-time sensing in city management is going to take a lot of things in a different way, and digital twins in all aspects of life. Why digital twins has taken, we will discuss when we come to that point. And transition of travel to telepresence, which is each one of you sitting in this meeting might have at least thought a couple of times how to do the client meetings without going there, in especially who are in brick and mortar business and who are in construction business and this kind of stuff. And exponential growth of environmental, social, and governance. And we will also discuss how that has an impact on that. These are the 4 things I want to focusly discuss for a couple of minutes. And if I have any more questions on that, I'll be very happy to answer offline or online or through the forum. So predominantly what is happening in sensing markets, you all know, there are a lot of IoT stuff coming into picture, but everything now has become a sensor-based monitoring and tracking happening in the business. See, so 4 years before, when we try to find a carbon dioxide sensor for a city project, the value of that sensor was about $190 US, and it is manufactured somewhere in Germany. But now the same types of sensors are available in the market for $7 to $8, and the way they sense things are very different than at the time they were. So why these things are coming up so fast, so quick, and how they are taking the market is because people are now suddenly realized because of the COVID that anything that you sense in a city is very important to help the city to manage better and serve better. So that is the reason these things are coming up. And then drone-based inspections, these are coming up, whether it is COVID or post-COVID, it doesn't matter. But this has accelerated because of less use of people in space and domain where you can go and view the things through a drone cameras, and very importantly, healthcare systems where you can use radar innovation. Healthcare system is unbelievable especially in last 24 months. And the short range radars has been being used in sleep management and as well as detection of erratic movements of elderly patients moving through the hospital corridors, or even in a quiet house. These things are being integrated into IoT, and then some kind of intelligence which will distinguish between a movement of a cat and a movement of an elderly person. So these are very important things. It is not just the sensing, but the IoT stuff, back analytics are helping to find out how to differentiate between each of these things. So this helped tremendously a lot. Without COVID, I think these technologies would have taken slightly more time to come into picture. Now, because of people going to a specific location has become an issue. So these LiDAR, radar, and optical instruments has started taking a big role, and this will definitely be playing a much, much bigger role in near future. In nutshell about sensing stuff. And second point which I emphasized is digital twins, which each one of you in this meeting might have worked at least one project on augmentation reality and VR systems. But what have changed now, the digital twins not only are becoming just as a representation models, they are also becoming a technology domain which can manage the projects. For example, you all know how things have changed, or at least will change in future about 3D printing. So now with the digital twin in place, a 3D printing can be automated. You can find an entire construction site with very few people. Even today in Singapore, you go to a 2 million square foot construction site, you sometimes can find hardly less people on the site. So what is going to happen in future, it will be much more technology in terms of 3D printing that will so much depend on creation of digital twins. It can be a small circuit board, or it can be something like a complex 3D building or a reactor or a factory. All these things can be very easily replicated and can be developed with very less human intervention. This will change a lot in a way how people deploy the human resources and how they help them to learn new things and what are the skill set that would be needed in that development businesses. And yes, we still struggle. Even last week, I was asking my management, can I travel? So Singapore has a very unique position in terms of travel. Government-linked companies or even private companies have very difficulty in finding a reason to travel. And so the things that has come up, augmented reality stuff, which were already there in the industry, but I was reading a Bloomberg article which tells by 2025, most of the Zoom calls or conference calls we make will be supported by using a telepresence calls. Means that you are immersed in a room where we tried once. It is quite fascinating, but it's not very realistic. But on and on, it becomes more realistic. There may be a day where you will be sitting in a room and talking to people with headsets or without headsets. Yeah, those are the days which will be coming up not so far. COVID has helped to fasten the technology implementation. Even COVID has created a companies like Zoom, which has accelerated growth by 10 times, catapulted them into mega companies just in span of 6 months to 1 year. Yeah, that's what one of the big bet. And yes, there was a bit of slowdown on ESG, environmental, social governance. This is the biggest thing in the world now happening. If you know, by 2030, 30 global cities will be under the water because of the climate change. And this is the biggest thing which is going to happen in urban domain. And if ESG is not the way to go ahead, then, of course, every business has recognized that. But I can tell you, COVID has a lot of impact on that in short term. A lot of implementations of ESG has slowed down, but in future, it may be slightly different. And the framework of ESG is critically important for future development of smart cities, which is in where I think COVID has a specific impact. There was a certain momentum loss in terms of environmental actions because a lot of resources were turned for fighting the COVID, which is very natural because countries have limited resources and limited options to work with. But I think that's very temporary. In near future, things will go back to the normal, and then this will take up. And in terms of social, one of the key things we have been seeing, United Nations and other global agencies has been requesting governments not to vaccine their people for second round and third round, whereas countries are there. Many countries globally didn't get even first round of their vaccination. So there is a country level, even at people level, there are differences of poor and rich has been pronounced and seen very well during the COVID time. People who lose jobs and who are really trying to find ways how to live their lives. And in terms of governance, it has shown a tremendous way where good governments has able to tackle the COVID much better than governments who are not prepared or less prepared or bureaucratic in nature. So this will give a very good direction towards governments that in a smart city domain, governance is one of the key things which everybody will realize, and they will try to put a special focus on that in mid to long term. So in a sense, what I would summarize is that COVID has definitely changed a lot of things in smart city implementation, and all these things changed, which I explained above, have changed forever and for good. And there are a lot of things which even people may start measuring you on terms of carbon miles you are scoring on your business, which will come very specifically travel for an executive. Then this executive has scored 10 million business, but his carbon cost is very high. Yeah, it can the thing which you have to rethink before taking a flight the next year, something like that. So these are the things which have struck me a lot. And I'm pretty sure my friends on the panel will have many more issues to share with you. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you, Satish. Yeah. Over to you.
Thank you, Ravi. Thanks for sharing this this wonderful insights. I think in the interest of time, let's go to Anju. Anju will have more interesting things to share with us. Over to you, Anju.
Right. Thank you, Satish, for inviting me to speak. I just wanted to check if you can see my slides.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. As you said, Satish, and as Raghu was saying as well, that we are in the midst of multiple crises: climate change, rising income inequality, deepening geopolitical tensions, and now a global COVID-19 pandemic. And these crises represent existential threats. But in the face of danger and urgency also comes a great action and innovation. And the impact of COVID-19 may just be the spark which galvanizes cities to find creative approaches to turn smart cities into smart societies. So I'm not just talking about smart cities here, but I'm really emphasizing on smart societies, where smart is not just about technology. We must place humans at the center and reimagine the way our technological solutions operate around human characteristics, such as our drive to connect and collaborate. So our company, Asbel Corporation, aims to help this change towards human-centered smart society with automation solutions through 3 business segments, which is life automation, advanced automation, and building automation. And Asbel Solutions also contribute to smart society through smart workplace solutions, smart building automation, and smart area management. And we are working and living in a time of really unparalleled technology and innovation and invention. And these technologies represent a really vast potential for the future. So, with that, I feel that our solutions should be moving closer to the center of people's lives and benefiting society as a whole. And this society should be centered on each and every person. So back to you, Satish, to continue with the others.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot, Anju, for these wonderful presentations. Next, we'll go to Pradeep and we'll try to understand from Pradeep's point of view, from his side.
Hey, hi. Thanks, Satish, and thanks, everyone. Let me share my screen. Okay, so hello everyone, good afternoon. Okay, Pradeep, representing Highway. So we are ISO 9000 certified company. We are a product and service based company which are targeting for F&B and retail solutions. So this solution basically emphasizes more on AI and IoT based products and solution. And as Anju told, yes, human must be centered, and then technology should work for human. That is the basic concept of our company as well. And in this session, I'm going to cover what's about the C-commerce, which is the next upcoming in the commerce industry, and what is the difference between e-commerce and C-commerce, how the C-commerce can benefit build the ecosystem of the smart city, and robotic process automation, how the process can be automated. Finally, I'm going to talk about something on use of IoT in RPA and the delivery automation. Okay, so when you talk about this C-commerce, right? So in this e-commerce, many people ask, what is e-commerce? What's the new terminology here? Yeah, it's a conversational commerce. Actually, it's a new form of e-commerce where every brand can be interacted with the consumers in a conversational way. So what's the difference? How the e-commerce is going to work with e-commerce? So assuming that you are going to a departmental store on your own, it's an e-commerce, and if someone is going to assist you as a personal sales assistant through some chatbot, through some lot of chat applications like WhatsApp, Facebook, Messenger, those applications also help the customer to engage between their e-commerce and the c-commerce. So that's how the customers can be engaged through the entire journey of their purchase in their website. Okay, the main thing, how this e-commerce is going to help every industry, whatever the industry, e-commerce industry maybe. Okay, for example, when someone is going to placing an order in the website, so end of the cart, they have a question. Whom should I ask this question? If no one is there, then every human has a tendency. I don't have help. Okay, fine. This transaction goes successful or not. Okay, let me. In that case, if someone is in the help through some automation or through personal assistance, through any way of the chat communication, then it helps to complete the transaction. So number one, the e-commerce will reduce the cart abandon. Second thing is, it will increase the potential leads. Okay, someone has a question, hey, today I'm going to order some eggless cake. Where should I order? I have a question in my mind. Instead of searching that, if I ask the question in the chatbot or whatever it may be, then it becomes a more conversational and it's going to be more personalized to the leads. So we can ease to close the leads. And moreover, getting a feedback about their service, about the operation, and many feedbacks to improve our current system. Okay, and upselling and cross-selling is of course a biggest opportunity. Let's say I'm ordering something and some items for my dinner, and then end of the day I can some upselling like desserts can be ordered. All these can be automated through this e-commerce. So these are the major benefits, and we can build the customer loyalty as well through this e-commerce system. Okay, so this e-commerce is going to be a big impact for in the near future for this smart cities. And the next thing is robotic process automation. What's robotic process automation? Does it mean a robot is working for everyone? Yes and no. Yes, in sense, this, as Anju told, every technology must work for human. So I have a process. Okay, this process need to be automated, and end of this process, the outcome must give a better vision to the human to take proper decision on that action. So in this case, for example, I'm placing an order, right? So when I place an order, so I have many things you need to do. So I need to go and look for different price, which one is the cheapest price, what is the best quality, who is the best quality vendor. What if all this process can be automated? Okay, and then it give a decision for the human to understand, okay, I can use this based on this robotic process automation. Okay, so that's how this robotic process automation, it plays a vital role in a smart city. And it has a lot of benefits, like it boosts the productivity mainly, and high accuracy of the outcome. You can get it since softwares and bots are working for human to make decision, and cost savings, because the process is being automated by some technology, so you can save the cost time there, and you can see the rapid significant improvement in the ROI of the implementation. Okay, and then moving forward, how this IoT and AI plays a role in RPA. robotic process automation. So IoT, earlier humans are connected through internet. Now the things are changed. Things are connected through Internet of Things. So meaning to say, this Internet of Things help the things to be connected and gather the data, and the data has been processed by some artificial intelligence tool, and then it helps the customer. It helps in the RPA, meaning robotic process automation. So it's a kind of a chain reaction from IoT to AI to RPA. So this is how the IoT and the AI plays a role in smart city. And finally, automation, delivery automation. Now, through e-commerce and c-commerce, commerce activity has been done, the process has been automated. Finally, the items need to be sent to the end users, I mean the consumers. How we are going to automate that? Yes. So there are a lot of automation happening. In sense, you can see around some small robots going here and there. Yes. So this is the autonomous guided vehicle. So this autonomous guided vehicle is automatic vehicle. Basically, it's a robot. It has a sensor, it has lidars, it has different cameras involved in there, and it helps to contribute in the autonomous delivery, meaning from point A to point B. It automatically carries the item and deliver the item. So just how the AGV plays a role in this autonomous delivery operation. And finally, the last delivery is one of the pioneer in Singapore as well, is a drone delivery. So drone delivery is also an autonomous delivery. Okay, so kind of a show to ship is happening in Singapore nowadays. Okay, show to ship, people can deliver the items to the ship, documents can be exchanged, so that the delivery can be automated. Yeah, these are the complete smart city solution what IB is representing. And this drone delivery we are using for our the portal myfood.sg is a delivery portal. It's an island-wide delivery we are doing in Singapore. So this robotic and drone delivery has been used. It's contributing a lot to reduce the carbon footprint and also improving the delivery automation as well. Okay, thanks guys. Thanks, Satish. Over to you.
Thank you, Pradeep. Thank you for giving us the complete, next level technologies and how things are how we can expect basically as a part of our next level technologies in near future. So moving on to it, let's move on to Mr. Abhijit Shanbhag. Abhijit, over to you.
Sure. I hope you all can see my slides.
Yes, we can.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so well, to start off, I don't believe we will ever get to be post-COVID. We will always be inter-COVID. Okay, so we are post-smallpox, but we can never be post-flu. So we'll need to live with COVID. It's brought in some significant trends that we will talk about. While smart cities are all about harnessing data from different sensors, from different programs, using technologies to exploit all of this data, our outlook at Graymatics has always been to exploit this goldmine of data from the CCTV cameras that have been installed across the cities. Okay, so the trends and such in some ways will be biased based on the CCTVs, which are also viewed to be the sites of the city. So these are some of the key components of the smart city. In discussing the trends that we are seeing, right, for the smart cities is finally about sustainability, livability, productivity, and security. Okay, so sustainability will have to do with energy management, water management. Livability is all about people, smart homes, smart care. Productivity and security is largely leveraging surveillance. So these are some of the trends here. So the first trend we'll like to talk about is that physical space has always been viewed to be a productivity tool. People are required to come work in the office. They have to be close together from a physical space standpoint. Post-COVID, as we all know, people have learned to be more resistant to having physical space as a productivity tool. We are all working from home or hybrid, working from home and office. And as an extension of that, we are finding that various different enterprises, including retail stores, including bank branches, are now moving to be unmanned or increasingly unmanned. So with this trend, actually, a number of opportunities are coming up in leveraging sensors such as CCTV cameras, right, to detect if there may be any safety breaches or any kind of vandalism activity, whether it's inside a bank branch or whether it's inside a retail store or whether it's in an enterprise setting. The next trend that we do see post-COVID or inter-COVID is that with respect to urbanization, there has always been a strong trend towards urbanization, which in other words means people moving towards limited spaces and increasing the people density within the limited spaces. Now, with COVID, we are seeing some reversal of that trend, and people are now looking to have more space, more outdoors. They're now spending more time in non-city places. In fact, even Graymatics, earlier we had this office in an R&D office in India, in Bangalore. But in the last several months, we've hired employees. There's one employee in Jamshedpur, one employee in Kolkata, one employee in Mumbai. So, so there's the urbanization we expect will continue to slow down. Now, if you multiply Graymatics by 10 million, you'll see how the trends are, right? So now, as urbanization slows down, there will be a lot of staff shortage in various different municipal activities or municipality actions, right? And due to that, automation of various routine tasks becomes critical. I think whether it's using robotic process automation, as my co-panelist indicated, or leveraging CCTVs in a much more active way. And furthermore, even the traffic patterns are now significantly changing. It's important to be able to understand various of those patterns from a standpoint of improving productivity, reducing commute time, and so on. The third trend is previously highly disconnected government agencies. We are now finding due to COVID are now increasingly sharing a lot of data. So, so that we are all in one team to beat this common enemy. Right, so a lot more of data sharing we are seeing is happening. And once we talk about a lot more data sharing, then that's very, very positive for AI or artificial intelligence based technologies. When data remains in silos, it's difficult for AI to be as effective as when all the data is shared. So increasingly, AI will be increasingly exploited, and COVID has accelerated the move towards that. And we are into COVID. We expect the safety mandates to continue being there. There will be vulnerable areas in different parts of the city, of the society or such, which will be vulnerable to COVID, and there will need to be appropriate monitoring from a community safety standpoint for wearing masks, maintaining social distancing, especially at those vulnerable spots. Contact tracing will continue, but it will evolve in a way that the privacy will be respected. Clearly, we are in a very different time right now with the very high vaccination rates than we were maybe 8-9 months back, where contact tracing was so much more critical. So the common thread in all these different opportunities corresponding to the 4 trends that we see is better leverage of the installed CCTVs. We have over 1 billion CCTV cameras that have been installed across the globe, and by some certain estimates, there are more CCTVs than humans on the planet. So now it will be time to better leverage all of that information to promote community safety, to enhance productivity and various different streamlining the operations. So there are various, so I think among the different sections we spoke about, like livability, productivity, security, sustainability. There are various different AI-powered analytics, which can be used for safe cities, for security, efficient cities, for productivity, sustainable cities, for sustainability. So the video AI solution, which we talked about for the safety mandate, it will be with us, especially in the vulnerable spots. There will be different spots which will become vulnerable at different times of our lifetime, and during that, there will need to be continuous monitoring from a community safety standpoint of the safety mandates. And my quick 20-second shameless self promotion, Graymatics, which I had, is an industry leader in video AI solutions, enabling various kinds of digital transformation solutions for the installed CCTV series and enterprises for various different use cases. Okay, so that's all. Thank you so much. And we'll be very happy to address any questions.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Abhijit. I think, since you have just finished the your presentation, let's start with a few questions with you. So, when we talk about new threats and new trends of urbanization, so the first question comes to our mind that the existing CCTV cameras which are installed there, so are they enough, or do we need to replace them with a new age technology kind of CCTV camera? So what is your thought on that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And in fact, our strong recommendation always is leverage the installed CCTVs. Okay, they can be used for a very large number of analytics, and maybe certain analytics which may require a higher resolution camera or such. But the message is leverage the installed base, leverage the current investment, and that itself can bore tremendous fruit. So stay with your current existing CCTVs.
Mm-hmm. And with the invent of video AI, so will there be any violation of privacy? Because this is the next bigger concern of across the globe, that why are you peeking in our lives and so on and so forth. So do you believe that there will be any kind of privacy violation because of that?
Well, majority of the analytics may not have any privacy implications, right? Like, for example, detecting traffic violations or detecting people are not wearing their masks or monitoring traffic statistics has nothing to do with privacy. But specifically around facial recognition, there is a gray area with respect to privacy. Right, so here different countries may only enable facial recognition to detect people in a quote-unquote blacklist who could compromise community safety. But now the challenge is, how do we define that blacklist? Right? Can we call a person who's evading taxes to be in the blacklist? Clearly, a child murderer or someone is clearly in the blacklist. Right? So there is a gray area there, and different countries are handling that differently. But that's where the privacy issues mostly tend to be centered in.
Okay. So as you said that, different countries are handling the different issues. So that again triggers another question that, so which countries are there currently which talks about these kind of technologies? Because we often we hear that, when it comes to video and surveillance, so the first name we hear about is China. And then everybody believes that, okay, China is, encroaching in your life, so on and so forth. So what do you think about the country-wise adoption of these technologies?
Yeah, so while we're seeing a lot of momentum across the globe in bringing in video AI across their installed CCTVs, but certain countries are bringing in a much wider range of video AI more quickly. So from them, I would probably identify China and India to be the ones who are bringing in a much deeper range of video AI. In fact, I would even place India above China in terms of bringing in a much deeper range of AI for the CCTVs. And but I'm clearly seeing that there are various other countries who are very quickly following suit.
Okay. So, with this question, I would like to take the similar one to Raghu, because Raghu is mostly dealing with the planning and urbanization of urban planning. So, Raghu, is there any scope for similar, security hedging or security provisions while you develop or work on any kind of urban planning projects?
Yeah, yes, Satish. See, I think there's a double-edged sword, right? The moment you start trying to pervasively help and monitor seamlessly across the domain and place, then what happens is that security is the first casualty because it can be used for many other purposes. For example, all your devices has been hacked by somebody. Okay, even for a moment. Hacking a website is not something uncommon, and every device, if it is a billion network devices and somebody hacks them, then you can be taken. These are the things which definitely, as we evolve the technology, other part, security also has to be evolved. And that is the reason authentication systems has now been much more important than any time else. For example, face-based, iris-based, and then you walk in authentication, all these things, and even identity preservation. These are the things which has been, you never know that, 10 years, 5 years before, just identity itself will become a big business. Authentication company will be a $10 billion company today. So these are the things which has to be, both sides has to be weighed very carefully. If you're not careful, yes, we will be ripped off for the things what we couldn't recover at all. Everything can be gone in 30 seconds. Yeah.
But Raghu, as when you are working on a new age technologies or new tech in this business, such as automation, precast, 3D printing, so they all are impacting the labor intensive industry, because construction and urban planning, town planning, which is a labor industry, I would say a labor generating vertical, and that too especially in Asia, where 4 out of 7 billion people are residing here, and employment generation itself is a big issue here. So how do you see new technology impacting the labor intensive businesses?
Yeah, so this honest to tell you, even people tell that no, it is not removing jobs. Actually, technologies will cause a lot of loss in the labor markets. Human intensive jobs will be very difficult to retain in future. For example, today Singapore is impacted so much due to lack of labor in the construction industry. All the projects are delayed by 1 year to 2 years. So if same thing happen after 10 years, some similar kind of pandemic, the impact on labor intensive activities will be much more less. So to answer you, yes, there will be impact, but what is going to happen in future is people will move a bit up in the value chain. Everybody will know how to operate things. There is a new way of doing things. It doesn't lose out a lot of jobs. It also creates a lot of new opportunities. So all these people who are in the intense, labor-intense industry has to equip themselves with new skills. That is the reason countries, especially countries like Singapore, emphasize a lot on skill development of people. So if that is going to happen, there will not be bad impact on the society. If not, even Uber kind of situation in France has caused a lot of backlash. Even a thought of thinking that Uber in future, which is 10 years, 15 years down the line, we don't know. So even that has caused a lot of backlashes in labor markets. Governments has to have take it very carefully, especially in democracies where intensity of labor is very huge. Yes, it will have some impact. Yes, Satish.
With this debate, or I would say like two sides of the same coin, I would like to go with the Anju and discuss about the government role in that, how South Asian governments are promoting a shift towards like sustainable smart cities. So what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, Satish, actually, ASEAN countries, they represent a wide variety of economies in terms of their level of development. And with the flurry, the recent flurry of new national emission pledges, governments across Southeast Asia pledged ambitious carbon neutrality plans backed by massive stimulus to push for green and sustainable industries. And this is for good reason, because the stakes are actually pretty high. Sustainability is back in the center stage, no longer is just a hip slogan of the 90s, but really as a survival need. And one of the major market developments wherein sustainable solutions will be required is in sustainable smart cities. Southeast Asia is expecting a population surge of 90 million in the next decade, which will put a lot of stress on existing infrastructure. And cities are a key contributor to climate change, responsible for 75% of carbon emissions, with transports and buildings being the largest emitters. So smart building solutions, for example, can unlock a lot of cost savings by adopting efficiency energy usage. And recently, as we all know, the Singapore government also unveiled the Singapore Green Plan 2030. And under this nationwide movement, an array of new initiatives in the areas of innovation will be introduced, which will contribute towards sustainable smart cities. So we're seeing a lot of movement.
Okay, so we can definitely, bank on the sustainable solutions in smart East Asian markets. So, so this is about from government point of view. But when we talk about personalized experiences for citizen services, so Pradeep has explained a lot of fantastic examples about the C-commerce and e-commerce. So when there is a evolution of a new technology, the first question comes like, is it going to cannibalize the older one? So is C-commerce going to cannibalize the e-commerce?
Of course not. The C-commerce, as I told you, is a complementary of e-commerce. E-commerce, you're going alone to buy something, but C-commerce, you're going with someone to buy something. So it's a complementary of e-commerce, and you won't cannibalize. So e-commerce is a base, and on top of that, C-commerce, it actually value added for each e-commerce industry. Yeah.
Okay. And as you said that RPA is going to be a very integral part of your C-commerce, which will be powered by AI and IoT. So which all areas that RPA will play a role in C?
Okay. So when you talk about e-commerce, it all towards the managing of stocks and the supply chain and the complete ordering process. So in that complete ordering process, the stock management is one of the key points. Stock taking, people are really worried to take the stock taking. A lot of limited manpower for even small retail shops or the F&B industry. They need to physically go and check, how much is the oil there, how much is the rice there. So these things, can be automated. Okay, process can be automated. In sense, we can capture the data from IoT sensors, and then from the sensors, the process can be automated. And then finally, we can analyze the inventory stocks, which is going down, which is sufficient for next year, next few months. All those things, the process can be automated. And end of the day, the business owner can be notified in a very good way that, okay, see, this is the stock of the, and the tomato price is increasing, and it's a buying decision. As I told you earlier, RPA given buying decision for the so the RPA is this how the RPA helps in the e-commerce industry. Yeah.
Okay. And like our attendees, like our friends who are there, who are attending this session, they are more interested to understand the food delivery system, how it is going to evolve, especially in Singapore, that what we can see in near future.
Yeah, right. Okay. The food delivery is becoming one of the biggest thing in during this pandemic period. During the circuit breaker, MyFood got a very big surge in the business. Okay, and this I see the Q&A that one of the attendees asked how this the drone is going to have an impact in the autonomous delivery in Singapore. Yeah, currently in Singapore, the civil aviation is testing this drone technology, especially when they talk about the MyFood for the food delivery. This drone is being testing on top of the waters. Okay, not eligible to deliver on the land. Okay, it takes some time. It's a national wise is a policy involved in that. So basically, impact, yes, is a long process, and we are currently with delivering shore to ship. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. So we have one more gentleman with us who has a question for Arijit, and he's asking that how Singapore fared in evolving technology adoption of tracking COVID-19, and what ways you see improvising in a trade together for a programming of contact sharing. Like we'll trace together contact sharing will be a long time. Basically his question is like more of a data sharing part of it or contact sharing part of it. So how things are going to shape up in next few years?
Yeah, sure. So actually, I think Singapore has been handling this has definitely been handling this very well. In fact, we are working with some of the Singapore government agencies in utilizing our platform for detecting different COVID safety mandates. So definitely 2 thumbs up to Singapore on that. And with a trace together app, right? I don't expect, at least purely my humble opinion, I don't expect trace together app to be used definitely long term or even medium term. Resilient. We are evolving to be a COVID resilient country. And we will there will be always COVID cases around us, right? So earlier when there were a lot of unpredictabilities around COVID, and obviously at its early days when people were not vaccinated and it was heavily contagious, trace together obviously made a tremendous contribution. But I don't expect this moving forward, at least in the medium to long term.
Yeah, what Abhijit told is really a good thing. Yeah, trace together, it helps in a lot of ways to reduce the spread of COVID. In fact, we are talking to other countries as well, especially in USA. Why USA and Australia? Why can't we implement the same trace together? We can import this trace together system to those countries. It's a wonderful thing, and we to be safe when we on the Bluetooth. Yes, we feel we are safe, right? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks a lot for everybody for sharing this wonderful insight. If I need to summarize this thing, these different things, I think as Abhijit said, we are living with the COVID, and now this is not post-COVID. So I would say we should be prepared for COVID and similar pandemics as well. And as Anju and Raghu said that, we need to develop more on a sustainable sustainable future rather than just thinking about this time or next 3 years or next 5 years down the line. And that too with the centering of that too, keeping humans as a center of the smart society where there has to be a very highly customized and customer satisfied develop, such as Pradeep's company is doing it. And there are I would say security angle also needs to be considered in order to make that entire process or like that entire experience as a flawless kind of thing. So these are the different areas that we need to work. And of course, no one else can work in a very silos kind of thing. Everyone has to think about a larger ecosystem and how this is going to impact the other stakeholders in the ecosystem as well. So like everybody's role, like from government's role till we as a citizen, responsible citizen, our role is also important in order to work with the smart city. And I think that if we see the last 24 months, I see that this is a very dynamically evolving, and we can't say that this will get stopped here. So this will keep further evolving to the next level, and this is how the smart city future will be progressing in near future. So this is what my thoughts are. Like, if anyone,
Yeah, I think I would like to add one of the questions that came up is Edward Chong has been asking on, which is close to my heart. I thought I will tell my opinion on that. See, he has been asking about how the climate change and nano effects will cause climatic aberration. See, the fact is, these are cyclic events. They may happen and they cause something. But what is constantly happening is because of the microclimates that pollution is creating and sea levels are rising, which is a fact. What are the signs? I am not a scientist of that, but I am an urbanist, so I know this and we are seeing it for long term. So what we should have to understand, we really need to put efforts on arresting these climate changes. If you don't do that now, it is not going to be so easy for our future generations. Yeah, that's what I think. So rather, I don't have a direct answer for Edward's question. Yeah, thanks, Edward, for asking that question. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks a lot, Raghu, for giving this answer.
To align with Raghu, I want to like to share my insights, like not insights, but my opinion. Yes, Raghu, what you say is really true statement as a climate change. Now, a few days back, now we have an event with Minister Lawrence Wong. So he was highlighting that we as a Singapore government, we are specifying more on the carbon footprint, how we play a part. So every company also need to play a clear part on the leaving the carbon footprint for even for our generation, for our grandchildren, or whoever it might be. So as a smart city solution, I think through this solution we can achieve that carbon footprint, to reduce the carbon footprint. Everyone must go with this same ecosystem moving forward. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Pradeep, for adding your important words. I think we have exceeded the time already. So thank you. Thank you everybody for giving your time and valuable information. And thanks all attendees for attending this session. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Wonderful day.
Bye.
Thank you. Yeah.